got David Mitchell, who has the distinction of being one of the very few people who has competed or been involved in every generation of hill rallies in the UK, competed on the very first ones in the 70s, was involved in the rebirth of the hill rallies in the 90s, and bringing it right up to date, has been involved in helping organise the Welsh Borders Hillrally, which is the new hill rally for 2022. Huge involvement all the way through, both as competitor, organiser, official, been there, done that. As been mentioned, Neil Rogers is an instigator and organiser of the inaugural Welsh Borders Hillrally this year, taking hill rallying, I think I'd say, back to its roots, which is road sections and special stages spread out across a sort of geographical area. So that's an event in May in Welshpool, which we'll come and talk a little bit more about in a bit. And then Pat Masters is about to enter his first hill rally, but very experienced in all other forms of motorsport, right from wheel-to-wheel racing with sand rails through Bajas and the British Cross Country Championship. So very, very interesting mix of people here that we'll hopefully have a useful chat to today as we work through. I think before I start, I'll talk about this. Just 3 hill rallies, I think, are intended this year, and one of which is in Iceland. So there's the Welsh Borders Hillrally that's going to kick us all off on the 27th to 29th of May. And then there's a Scottish Borders Hillrally at the end of the year, which I think they're hoping is going to be 19th, 20th November, but it's a provisional date as it stands. And in between times, for those who fancy a trip overseas, there's an Icelandic hill rally set up by Ian Sykes, who was the instigator of the original Scottish hill rally back in the day in August. So let's just take it back to basics then. So I'd like to ask kind of, what is a hill rally and what makes them so special? Do you want to start, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, a hill rally's it's a mix of a comp safari and a rally, really. You with liaison sections in between that you've got to navigate to the special stages, the actual time sections. So, and it's more about, it's a team event. I mean, any competent mechanic can turn up at a comp safari without a navigator and do the comp safari on his own. Once you've done the lap, the first run, you pretty much, you know, if you've got a good memory, you can carry on all day long. But a hill rally, you do need a competent navigator and you need a good service team behind you as well. Otherwise, you're not going to finish the event.
So, David, what would you say makes a hill rally so special?
What Neil says is correct, but I think the hill rally is also that you can use several different venues. If you go to a comp safari and you do it 10 times, it's challenging, it's demanding, but you get to know the course. A hill rally, you generally use several different venues, so the terrain can be completely different from one to another. And as Neil's rightly said, it's teamwork, making sure that vehicle survives. Because you've got to think that you actually can be racing for 2.5 days, and there's no use being fastest out, and you can fastest out sometimes on the comp safari, you can repair it, but this you've got to keep the vehicle going and make it more challenging. So as organisers, we try and throw in as many different types of terrain over the 2.5 days.
I think that's, for me, that's one of the things about it, is that the variety of different terrain. One stage might be a completely different character to the previous one, and you've got to adjust your way of driving completely from, I don't know, mud to gravel tracks, and it's quite a variety of different stages. Is that what we're going to see this year in the Welsh Borders?
I think so, if Neil wants to add to it, but Neil's done most of the work on the stages. But what I've seen, you've got a vast selection of different types of terrain. Unlike conventional stage rallying, which I'm involved in, you tend to get to know where you are on which event by the terrain you're driving on. Is very similar. This hill rally this year, yes, we got closed roads. Sorry, Neil, that was your thing. Closed roads, fast tarmac, and then real challenging off-road terrain where you need to know how to handle your vehicle.
Be careful, Dave, he's fishing. He's a competitor, remember, and he's trying to get first-hand experience.
And you know my motto, I don't tell lies unless I'm speaking.
Yeah, so full disclosure there, I'm hoping to compete on this year's event. I've managed to secure an entry, which for this year was the first hurdle, frankly, because it sold out very, very quickly.
Yeah, we opened entries on Monday evening at 7 o'clock, and by Wednesday evening, 9 o'clock, we had a full entry of 60, and we've now got 4 on the reserve list as well.
Fantastic. That's just amazing. Before we come back to it, because you mentioned something really interesting there with the closed road element. Before we come back to that, Pat, what's attracted you to Hillrallies and why the Welsh Borders this year?
Well, I think the main attraction this year is obviously Neil, who's bent my ear relentlessly with having obviously a road legal car over the last 12 months. Will you do this Hill Rally if I do it? If I'm planning to do this, what do you think? Would you do it? So in the end, it's just easy to say yes, to be honest. Other than that, as I said, the mixture of different terrains is good. I've done stage rallying in rally cars, and it's a combination of that and the off-road that we all love, and bring it together really, and that seeing it through for 2 or 3 days without, unless you have any sort of technical gremlins, then you're going to get to the end, aren't you? It's good. So
Neil, tell us a bit about how this rally's come about. I mean, David tantalisingly dropped in the possibility of some closed road stages, which would be quite amazing. And there's a bit of French influence in there, isn't there?
There's a lot of French influence in it, Henry. I promise, and I'll say this publicly now, if I have any more bright ideas, I will lock myself in a dark room until they pass.
Please don't.
Yeah, I mean, I went out to watch the Seams in 15, decided to build a car and go back to do the Seams in 18. And just being out in France, the public get behind the sport. And I mean, I remember coming down, Chink was behind me, we were in a hire car, we're coming down off the last stage from Madeline, and they'd actually wheeled out Grandma out onto the public road in a wheelchair, and they were all waving as they went past. And I thought, we need something like that in the UK. I mean, comp safari, I think, and cross country has been sort of hidden away, and there's no real publicity until obviously over the past few years. And I think going forward, we've got to make it's got to be more sustainable. I mean, I'm a Motorsport UK scrutineer, and I sat through a seminar last Saturday, and Motorsport UK were banging on about sustainability, and they're right. I mean, we have got to make it sustainable. So it's a test event, and I thought, well, if we're going to put a hill rally on where we're using public roads, now they've got a closed road act through where we can use closed roads. I thought, well, why not go the whole hog? Go big or go home. I am regretting it in some days. This week has been particularly trying, but I'm not going to be beaten. We will put the event on, and there will be some closed roads on it. So I know some people have already been out testing last weekend. I'm looking at 2 of them now, practicing their tarmac driving skills as well as their off-road driving skills. You will be picking up penalties if you take out stage furniture, Phil. But yeah, I really hope that it benefits. It started out as a motorsport event. Now, because I live in Welshpool, it's got to benefit the local town. And if we want to get it into the public domain more, we need to make sure that the public are behind us, because that's the only way we're going to carry the sport forward.
So I'm very excited about the closure. I was recounting earlier in the section we did on the French Tout-Terrain Championship, which is where you say you've taken some of your inspiration from, and was of course the inspiration for the original Hill Rally back in the 70s. I was recounting how I drove through a village sideways with smoke pouring off the tyres, and it was just one of those most memorable things we've ever done. I'm very much looking forward to sampling a few. But more importantly than whether it's fun for us to go and rag around on the tarmac and on the public road, it does open out more opportunities from a land perspective as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we're not using a great deal of closed road on this event, but obviously we've got to start small. We've got to start somewhere. The big problem is a lot of the local councils have never done this before. So you're actually educating the councils as well, which is trying, to say the least. But, if it works this year, I know there's a club somewhere up north. They've got 4 sites, all within 25 miles of each other. I've set down the challenge that they need to put on a hill rally as well. I've been approached by somebody that's got ground down in the southwest. Again, you know, it needs investigating, but it's for everybody that's involved in the sport. I mean, I'm no organiser. It's, you know, it's an idea. You get a good team around you, and luckily I have got a good team around me, and you can make the event happen.
So Pat, the mixture of terrain, does that faze you?
Not really. I mean, in my racing career, I've had all sorts of terrains. With the wheel-to-wheel, we used to rent a farmer's field and race on wet stubble or wet grass. I've raced on the beaches in Lincolnshire. I've done gravel. I've raced in sand in Bovington and mud. So no, I'm quite looking forward to that. The tarmac side, I've already done a tarmac rally with the Freelander when I first got it, Northwest Stages. So I'm quite happy to. In fact, it's one of the things I'm really looking forward to is the mixture of it, and also the stages that include the going from one terrain onto the tarmac and back again. I think it's going to be very interesting to race. So I'm looking forward to that immensely. Yeah.
It's certainly eye-opening because you've got such a mixture of different terrains to have to deal with and different grip levels all the way through. And tarmac's not the grippiest of surfaces once you're on knobbly tyres and been out through the mud.
The other thing is the time element of it. So it's whereas this comping is you do one lap. If you break it badly, you fix it. You're generally fairly okay with it. With this, you're going to be against the clock. It's the rallying idea. So it's a lot of it's about preserving the vehicle through it as well, rather than going out and creaming it on the first stage. So it's going to be good. I'm really excited.
Excellent.
Can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Sorry.
Talking about closed roads, I'm involved in several of the closed road tarmac events. What is proved, I think, jumping around a bit here, with the closed roads on the Hillrally, it actually means we can actually link rough terrain together, where we might only have a mile on that side of the road, a mile on that side of the road. Running a mile stage, we need all the safety things, not practical. But putting them two together with 100 yards of tarmac, the Northwest Stage, which I'm safety officer, which we ran 2 years ago, which was all closed road. It was amazing, going back to Neil, he reminded me, we actually had permission from a school to use their school when they should have been school children doing school things.
Yeah.
But so much so that this year's event, they've actually given us 2.5 miles of extra tarmac. Wow. Because the youngsters were that keen, and there's a whole project going on. So as Neil said, it's getting all the local people involved, and the closed road means we can achieve things that we haven't been able to do. And I don't want people to think it's closed road tarmac. It is still a cross-country event, and we're using that closed road to give another type of terrain, but also being able to link rough terrain that we wouldn't have been able to do because of all the safety things and what have you. So it's
fantastic.
All types of terrain.
That's brilliant. So going back to the public sort of access, Neil, which it sounds like it's one of the things that you're really keen to sort of show off the sport a bit to people, get people more involved. The format of the event that you've come up with out of Welsh Pool is much more in the public eye because it's kind of right slap bang and centre.
Yeah,
Tell us about
what I'm trying to do is we're going to have obviously the service areas at the Welsh Pool livestock sales. And then we're actually going to have scrutineering. Competitors will be on the clock, just like you are in France. You get your time to turn up at scrutineering, and that will be in Welsh Pool itself. So I'd like the public to come and view the cars, talk to the teams, and meet the competitors, actually at the livestock market or at scrutineering. We're not having spectator stages per se, because obviously that involves an awful lot more work for the organisers. So, yeah, but it's a good way of, you know, they can come and meet the teams and see the cars, get up close, and rather than go out to the stages. I mean, I know some spectators will find their way out on the stages. I haven't got a problem with that too much, providing that, you know, they take their litter home with them and they respect the land that they're on. But there are certain stages that we just can't have spectators. That is actually being dictated to us by the landowners. So, but yeah, come to the livestock sales, meet the teams, have a chat. We're all being well, have some static displays as well. Static displays there as well. We've got Welsh Air Ambulance involved as well. So hopefully we won't need them on the event, but it's good to be able to put something back into the into the charities as well.
Certainly makes quite a different feel to the event. I know that in France is the only time I've ever been asked for my autograph. Yeah, well, absolutely. It's kind of nice to have people mixing in amongst it, and that was something that some of the early hill rallies had as well, because they had kind of more town centre starts. And
First Hillrally started from Llangollen, North Wales, and I was amazed at how many people were actually on that bridge and how many people were actually out on the route, because it generated the interest. And because it was a new event, it was actually really, and lots of people out. And I also brought the all-wheel drive Club and Land Rover clubs back together again, because there'd been a split just before then. And it was nice to see so many different people out there taking part in such a basic event. Good.
How would you say, because obviously the sport's evolved enormously from where it was then, which was basically kind of standard Land Rovers and Haflingers and all sorts of other vehicles, ex-military Jeeps and the like. How do you think the stages have evolved? Because you've seen the stages from this year, and I'm not just trying to find out what they're all about, Neil, but you've seen the stages this year. How do they differ from those original stages back in the day?
You'll have to find out when you're competing.
It's not for me, David. It's for the audience.
I'm not going to tell them either. They're going to find out on the day. That's what's part of the challenge of rallying is. You can sometimes walk the comp route. I've never walked the comp route in my life. I have a vehicle to drive. So you can walk it, whereas this, you're going to find it when you drive it in front. There's no practicing or anything like that. It's what you see is what you're driving on, and that's where you two got to navigate in your black and white car.
Yeah, navigator's absolutely probably the most critical part of a hill rally, both getting you to the stages, but also getting you round the stages safely, and trying to find out that little bit of extra information about what's coming up. Sorry, Neil.
The stages, you were asking about what the stages are like. Obviously, we've got to be mindful that there's competitors in Freelanders, but you have got to be able to drive off-road in some of the off-road sections. It is not a gravel stage rally. It is an off-road event, so bear that in mind, Pat.
It's not me that's the problem. It's my navigator that's now decided that she might have an issue. Since it's what David was saying about it's a navigator's job.
You're going to find all types of terrain out there, from your nice smooth tarmac to, my God, are they really wanting me to drive over that? But yes, we've done it in standard vehicles.
There's actually one particular stage that when I was doing a recce, Sean, my wife, came round who's doing the zero cut, and she said, that corner's going to cut out really bad there. So I said, no, it won't. She said, why? It's because you're not going through that corner. You're going over that cliff face there. So she's already sort of like not happy.
Sounds wonderful. I have to say, it's just whetting my appetite.
We've got the full entry in already.
Correct, and they're paid up.
I don't think you're going to put anyone off. It sounds more and more exciting as we go on. I mean, Pat, are you making any special considerations or preparations to the car for this event compared to any others? Is there anything different in terms of how you'll approach this event?
I guess the only thing really is that generally we don't have the car on the road. It is road legal, but we don't drive it on the road. So one of the things I found from my wheel-to-wheel days was if I put a car on the road and drove it and used it every day, it run all the faults out of it, so it becomes a more reliable vehicle. So I'll definitely be doing that. We'll be putting it on the road and running it for a few months before the event, and just try and get rid of all the different noises that you never really hear if you've got your helmet on, and that makes a big difference. Your reliability goes up. You're confident the car was going to start every time, and all those little things that just reduce the gremlins that you might have on the stage. But that's about it really. The car's been developed over a few years with the racing we've done. I'm happy with it. I'm happy with our handles, so I'm not going to mess with it too much now.
Excellent. Sounds great. So what's well, I kind of don't know whether I should be asking this question because we still haven't got to this event yet, but what's next for hill rallies in the UK? So where do we go from here? Because I think this feels to me like another watershed moment. I talked briefly about the fact that in the 90s there was a moment where we relaunched the hill rallies, from a period of slumber, and you're doing it again this year, Neil. What?
Silence is golden, Neil.
Well, providing the zero car comes back in one piece, I intend to go out to Orthez in France in August. Where's the Hillrallies going? That's a good question. That's a question that everybody in this room should be thinking about, because, you know, John, Sean, Dave, myself have proven that, you know, you can put on these events. So I think really it just needs, I'm certainly not going to be doing it all the time. I mean, yeah, I'll put this event on, prove it can be done. I'd love to compete in a hill rally, but it means that some of the other people, some of the competitors out there at the moment have got to step forward and think about organising an event so that, you know, the organiser of this event can actually compete in one.
Yeah, for sure it can't be down just to you. I think that would be putting a lot of weight on your shoulders, and I think there's plenty of weight on your shoulders as it is, but yeah.
Other people can, other clubs need to come forward and put the events on. I've said that obviously we're a non-for-profit organisation. It would be lovely to have a couple of grand in the pot at the end of the event, and then say to an organisation or a club, if you get another hill rally up and running, we'll gift you this money, but you've got to get the event up and running. You know, that's a bit of an impetus then for somebody to step forward and do it.
You were talking earlier about sustainability and how that's a kind of watchword at the moment. And sustainability, I think often when people think about sustainability, we think about, you know, the environmental sustainability, we think about electric motorsport, we think about sort of things that are kind of wild and wacky. But there's some things we can do just with the sport that we've got today to make it more sustainable and more possible to kind of carry on with. And I
mean, I've been using this phrase for probably the last 3 years, but if you take 40 cars to a comp safari, be it a 2-day event, and every one of those cars does 10 runs over the weekend, that's 400 passes over that bit of ground. You do a hill rally, 60 cars, run the stage twice, that's 120 passes. That's 70% less impact. Now, you know, I know there's a couple of farmers out there that I've already said this. Obviously, British isn't running this year, and one of the competitors who is a farmer said, oh, it's a shame. And I said, yeah. I said, but if I bring 40 cars to your farm, and he said, no. I said, OK, I'll bring 60 cars to your farm and just run the stage twice. Now, that's a maybe. So, you know, that's the way we get sustainability.
So, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense, but I guess there's a reason why we haven't done hill rallies, quite so many hill rallies in the last few years, David. They're much more difficult to organise. There's a lot more effort required.
Yeah. When I was looking at some paperwork for Diana, you know, the file I had for the first hill rally as a competitor, you know, was the thick as your pad there. In '92, it was 2 files. And this year, it's just unbelievable how much paperwork John, Neil and I have actually had to produce just to actually get us to this position. It's easy when you're involved in organising lots of events because you just follow on and you just say to manual and all this and the other, you can just adapt and adjust. But the amount of effort it takes for all rallies and now to put on. But the hill rally, you said, what's the future? Well, you know, as I've said in one article, in '70 when I was in Liverpool thinking I'd be talking about hill rallies 50 years later, still involved. I want to be involved in the next year and the next year as long as I'm alive. But the thing is we need the backing from everybody, and that's not just the sponsors or the organisers of the competitors. You've all got to work together. And what I do find frustrating, this might be edited out, is that sometimes I find competitors criticise the organisers without really thinking about what they're saying. And in case sometimes the opposite way around, we've got to work as a team. And the team will put the event on, and that's for the competitors and the organisers and the sponsors. We've all got to work as one to make it work. And once this is over, I'm sure it's going to be successful. There's no doubt about that. Where do we go from that? Well, we need help to put the next one on, because the amount of manpower, I'm glad I'm retired now, because it's basically a full-time job, nothing compared to what Neil and John's doing. But it literally is a mammoth job to put on, and we need help. And this generally applies much like to all motorsport. We're not seeing the youngsters coming forward. and we need the new blood, as everybody says, coming forward and helping us, saying, right, I'll be stage commander or assistant or whatever, you know, I'll come and take a job on. And we are far most likely not encouraging people, so we need new blood.
So how can people get involved, David?
Give me money. I mean, come and say hi and I'll find you a job. Simple as that. Today, I've had 3 or 4 people I haven't seen for the last couple of years because of COVID, what have you. They've all come up and said, we'll help. It sounds awful. I know what their good and strong points are, so already when I have next meeting with Neil and John, I'll say I've got Joe Blogg, Chris Smith. He's a good timekeeper. He's useless at the paperwork, and you actually try and find what they're good at and put them in the right place. And if they're in the right place, they're enjoying it, so they'll end up doing a good job.
Yeah. Neil, what are you looking for from people to get involved?
Well, one of the things I would like to say first, I'd just like to thank all our sponsors, Brit Parts, Ravenol Oils, Par Homes, Virtual Food Services, Voxcloud and Links Electrical. But one of the other things that we're doing this year is obviously trying to get big sponsors involved, involves big lumps of money. So I decided to do what the French do, another French idea, is we're going to have a programme. And within the programme, we're selling advertising space, be it full page, half page or quarter page. And that's bringing in quite a good sum of money. And what we're going to do is, when we do all the photographs and it goes out on Facebook, which can be a useful tool, can be a pain, but we've got Chloe Bayliss and James Harding from Team OFG are going to do all the photographs. So we're going to get them to photograph all the adverts within the programme and intermingle them with the event photographs so that the sponsors can gets a wider share of all the advertising then. So that, I mean, anybody that's interested in having a advert in the programme, please get in touch with me. Yeah, as Dave just alluded to, we need competitors to get more involved. You need to find the ground, talk to people, and then, you know, try and formulate a plan to put another hill rally on.
I think it's interesting, obviously, the way that the French do it with the French Championship is they are all different clubs organising every single round, and so they come together as a championship, but every round is a different club putting an event on.
But it's been tried many times in the UK, and unfortunately it doesn't work. I'd love to see it work, I really would. But I think, I do believe it could possibly work with hill rallies, you know, because that's not your bread and butter comp safari. But yeah, I mean, any organisation really, I think if people can formulate a group and find the ground and then start to put it, there's lots of people out there. I mean, I would still help people put on a hill rally.
I was going to say, there's a huge wealth of experience sitting here. There's a huge wealth of experience in the audience here. There's a huge wealth of experience that will support any endeavour to put hill rallies on, I suspect. And I think what you've also proven with this event is there is a latent demand there. There are people who want to come out and do these events.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, you know, the entry's filling up so quick. I know I've been banging the drum for long enough and, you know, twisting people's arms, Pat included, to get people to enter. But, yeah, I do believe that people want something different, and I'm hoping this event can bring that, and then future events can take it a step further.
When we talked about putting this event on, several people in rallying and off-roading came and said, you won't get more than a dozen, maybe 20 vehicles out there. I said, well, I reckon we'll get 58. I said we get about 58, and I've been proved wrong. There's over 60.
You were wrong too. Yeah.
No, but the point was, a lot of people were negative about the rally, saying, oh, as long as he might tax his vehicle, he might not. Thank you, competitors. You proved that there is a demand for it, because as Neil said already, within 24 hours we basically had a full entry. And we know in truth that 1 or 2 people have to drop out for different reasons, but other people will come in. That event's going to be running with 60 cars near enough, so brilliant to everybody on the team.
Well, the other thing is as well is that, I mean, obviously I wanted to run it as a clubman, because when Motorsport UK decided to change their licensing structure, by running it as a clubman, it means that driver and a navigator have saved themselves somewhere in the region of about £200, so they can run it on a free licence, which does mean we could charge a little bit more for the event. I remember last year, I was up at Kielder scrutineering for the British, and it was obviously the last day that Dan Evans was alive, and me and Dan had a lengthy conversation about it. And one of the things that Dan said to me that struck was, don't undersell it. So, you know, it's, I don't think we've undersold it, and I'm hoping it'll offer good value for money.
I'm certainly very much looking forward to it, Pat. I imagine you are too. The other great thing about Hillrallies is it does bring to the fore production cars, because it's obviously much easier to get tax and test on a production car than it is in a special. What an entry! I mean, we've got something in the region of 15 or 16 production cars. Maybe that's a bit more.
Yeah, I think I know there's definitely, I think five Freelanders. I think there's about three or four Discoveries, a couple of 90s. There would have been another one, but a certain person who's sitting down at the front decided to try and rearrange the panel work last year. But there's a lot of Tomcats as well, which are, you know, are road legal, which is good. I mean, it's clubman racers. That we have got some of the more exotic cars entered as well, but I'm really pleased to see that we've got a good turnout of traditional beam axle vehicles, and obviously the Freelanders and the Discoveries.
And Pat, that's going to make the competition a bit more interesting for you. You've sort of had it your own way in some of the competitions in recent years, because there's been a limited number of production cars. How are you looking forward to having a bit more competition?
Yeah, that's fine with me. We came up through the Freelander Championship. We won that twice. We're used to having a bit of competition nipping around us. Yeah, bring it on. No problem at all. What I would like to say, though, is a thank you to the organisers for putting this on. Having run some fairly small-scale events myself, I know the pressure they're under, and I'd like to say thank you for that.
Big undertaking. Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I think that's probably all we've got time for this afternoon. There's loads more I would have liked to have asked and talked to you about.
We weren't going to tell you anyway.
No, I got the impression that was going to be difficult. So
The grass is green and the mud is brown. And the tarmac is black.
So thank you, David, Neil and Pat, for joining us. Very much looking forward to the event, very much looking forward to the other Hillrallies this year, and we'll hopefully see you all soon.
Well, thank you very much to Henry, to Pat Masters, Neil Rogers and David Mitchell with our insight into the world of Hillrallies.